Do you know how we have the WWE Universe? Well, everybody else outside of those walls is now creating, I don't know, the Forbidden Door universe, because you can't watch any other wrestling programming right now without somebody else from a different company turning up and you being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's also super duper fun because it makes all the stories make even more sense. For example, if you're really mad at another wrestler and they're hopping around companies and you start following them, well, anybody watching go, well, of course they do that. They're pissed off. So it's brilliant, it's great, and this is my intro to Ups and Downs for Impact, who in many ways is like acting as the hub for this. So let's find out if the latest one was any good or if it absolutely sucked by upping those downs. Doesn't even mean anything. We had a big focus on the arrival of Jay White to Impact Wrestling last week, because of course that is a big deal. When we cut to Scott D'Amore, who was all like, oh man, we gotta get some stuff done here, when Tommy Dreamer walked up to him and said, okay, you may be getting stuff done, but it's been 2 weeks since Slammiversary, and I don't see a number one contender for Kenny Omega. I was like, Tommy Dreamer, you were such a job's worth. Clearly Scott doesn't want to bother with any of this right now, because he said, okay, Tom, I'm just going to hand that responsibility to you, and it goes to show, don't go around running your mouth if you're not willing to accept the consequences. This then led into the Good Brothers versus Chris Bey and Jay White in a non-title match, and as I always say, who the hell knew we were going to get that at the start of 2021. Anderson was beaten up for a while until Luke Gallows got in there, and because he is so big, he started punching Chris Bey right in the face, and at this juncture I was like, well, that's kind of fascinating, because if Chris Bey is being punched right in the face, that means Jay White is going to get the hot tag and run wild. And when was the last time you saw Switchblade as a babyface? That is certainly a very different representation. He did this very successfully though, which is why it was baffling when he tagged back in Chris Bey, because Chris got in the ring, Jay White got thrown to the outside, Bey then got hit by a chokeslam, he walked into a magic killer, 1, 2, 3, he had just dropped the ball. So this was not the best audition to get into the Bullet Club, although it does make the story far more interesting, and technically it also means that Jay White just lost his first wrestling match in Impact. I mean, it didn't because he wasn't pinned or submitted, but this was the way to go about it because I never saw it coming. That always works up. What wasn't so great this week was all of the production. Now maybe this was just an error on my end and my technology had decided to skip out, but because we had fans back, it kind of felt like Impact had turned them up to 72, whereas D'Lo Brown and Matt Striker on commentary had been turned down to 7. It meant that it was just a wall of noise at points and you couldn't really hear anything, and I found that so frustrating. I did think to myself, if I wasn't reviewing this with my fingers, I may actually turn it off. And you never want to get to that point, so again, I will apologize if it turns out it was a personal thing, but it was still a personal thing, so whatever the reason was, down. We then continue this tease that Fire and Flava may be about to break up, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but I really do think they're about to break up. Because Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz were here and they were like, oh man, we're going to win our tag team championships back, when Fala Bar approached and said to Tasha Steelz, hey, do you want to be my partner at Homecoming? Unfortunately, Hogan assumed that he was talking to her, and when Tasha realized that, she was like, man, you're so arrogant, you're the reason that we always lose. And I was like, well, there it is. We have planted those seeds, bad things are coming. Impact then went Impact, and you gotta love them because they don't care and they're just gonna do whatever they want to do, which they should do because it makes them more interesting. Because it was Taylor Wilde versus Kaleb with a K. Now, not only was that an intergender match, but it was also kind of a comedy affair because, of course, 9 times out of 10 when we do see Kaleb with a K, he's just running around with a cell phone going ting, 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 taking a bunch of selfies. It's not like Kaleb didn't get in any offense here either. He really did. He was throwing some bones at some point, but the whole point is we are building to Taylor Wilde versus Tenille Dashwood, so we have to give her something. Although saying that, Kay probably would have won if he didn't decide to use his fanny pack as a weapon. Like, what was the best case scenario here? You were just gonna annoy Taylor Wilde by rubbing some fabric into her face? Made no sense. It was also the reason this went bad because it allowed Taylor to hit a DDT, she hit a Poison Rana, and she finished it off with a German suplex complete with a bridge. She gets the victory. Now she can go on to fight Tenille. This was straightforward stuff. So yes, it was probably just there to do the job, but it did the job. I wasn't offended up. I knew this opening match wouldn't serve Chris Bey either because he was in the back saying, oh, Jay White, I'm so sorry I've let the Bullet Club down. And Jay White was like, listen, wait, you haven't let the Bullet Club down because you're not even in the Bullet Club yet and you're already not winning matches. matches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a second chance, but no, these don't come along very often. So again, Chris Bey, look, you are one of the future stars of professional wrestling. It is so important this time you smash it out the park. I'm sending you positivity and I'm sending you love, but man, you're walking on a tightrope. Had a quick Josh Alexander promo next, and he was saying because he wants to be the best X Division champion ever, he needs opponents. Scott D'Amore then overheard this and he walked in and said, oh, I've been eavesdropping. I was going to give you some time off, but instead at Homecoming, why don't you fight Black Taurus? Now this will be a really good match too, because Josh Alexander's having a great 2021, and every time you see Black Taurus in the ring, you're like, oh yeah, you're a really good wrestler. But Impact does love sometimes to fall into this pit where they go, well, we want to have a match, so Scott D'Amore's just going to walk up and he's going to make a match. And you know me, I like stories, I like narratives. You even could have had Black Taurus just attack Josh Alexander here, just to give us a little something. It just, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to emotionally buy in when they do this, so it's getting it down. Interview with Deonna Purrazzo next as well, and Gia Miller was like, look, you're working for Impact, you're working for NWA, you're here, there, and everywhere. Do you think it's going to wear you out? And Deonna looked at her and said, no, you absolute idiot. She then went on to say that not only is she doing all of the above, but she's also training with Invicta's Alicia Zappatella, so basically, she can do whatever the hell she wants. Good for her. Following on from all the madness of the last 2 weeks, we were then having FinJuice, No Way, and Flava taking on Ace Austin, Madman Fulton, Rohit, Raju, and Shira. They just had a really good multi-man tag team match. It kind of followed the exact pattern you would expect in Impact Wrestling, because in the start, the good guys were on fire. They were going, yes, 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 before the bad guys went, wait, we see a weak link in their team. It's Flava. Let's punch him in the head. They did. Down he went, and they beat him up. So everybody then took their turn of slapping him right in the face until Ace Austin got in there. Because while Ace Austin is a great wrestler, he's more of a speed guy, whereas Flava is more of a power guy. And when he wasn't able to take him down, he got the hot tag to Finlay, he ran wild, Juice Robinson was in there as well, the tag team klaxon went off, meaning they were all allowed to hit their moves. Like I say, you've seen it before, but it always works. Ace Austin then did this crazy dive over the top rope to take everybody out that allowed Finlay to hit the trash panda to get the 1, 2, 3. FinJuice probably needed to get a visual pin here, and they did. Had all the usual wonderful nonsense with Kenny Omega and Don Callis next, because once again Gia Miller was knocking on Kenny Omega's door asking for an interview when Callis came out instead. But this week he is so happy and Kenny Omega is so happy, the champion will talk to her. And of course you already know what happens. Kenny came out here and he basically let Don Callis continue on because he was just saying nice things about the champ. The bubble was then kind of popped though, because up walked Tommy Dreamer and he just said, look, I want to inform you on the next couple of weeks, because we are going to have a big battle royal, and whoever comes out the victor of said battle royal is going to be the #1 contender to Kenny Omega's title. And Kenny and Don Callis treated this like they couldn't believe what was going on, as if they were never going to have another match ever. These two were great. Another video for the Drama King followed, so Aiden English is coming to Impact Wrestling soon. I look forward to that. When we then cut to the backstage area, where Chris Bey and Jay White started to beat up FinJuice, because of course soon on a New Japan Strong show, we are getting Jay White versus Finlay. So it ties into what I said earlier, the wrestling universe is here. It's all about this forbidden door, but it also proves why Jay White and Chris Bey need to become a proper tag team, because they can be Jay and Bey. And you don't have opportunities of that sitting at your feet and not take advantage of them. So Impact Wrestling, you better do it. Kind of surprisingly following this too, we had an in-ring segment with Don Callis, Kenny Omega, and the Good Brothers. And usually Kenny Omega and Don Callis just do one thing, and then they're out of here. But I suppose we wanted to give something back. They were just talking about how happy they were and how they're beating everybody up, when out of nowhere, Sami Callihan returned to Impact Wrestling and told Kenny Omega, look, I know we had that match at Slammiversary, and I know that you won, but do you think I'm done with you? Because the answer is I'm not. He also promised to win that battle royal and become the #1 contender, but given that that's 2 weeks away, he would rather do something next week. So we are going to have a 6-man tag, Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Sami Callihan and his brand new friend, and that's when we got the surprise of the evening, the return to TNA/Impact Wrestling of Frankie Kazarian. This was perfect as well, because of course he's the elite hunter and he promised the elite, wherever you go, I'm going to be on your ass. And that doesn't matter whether it's AEW, that doesn't matter whether it's Impact, He's gonna break all of these boundaries. He started to whoop ass, and I thought this was terrific. The crowd loved him up. Backstage, Dreamer also said that he is gonna go out there and find a third person for this team, and he whispered who it was going to be. But don't worry, they revealed this later. It was Eddie Edwards. Now you may scratch your head and go, wait a minute, don't Sami Callihan and Eddie Edwards basically have a blood feud? And the answer is yes. But I suppose they just hate the Elite more. We then found out that yes, not only is Su Yung back properly, but she's also transformed Kimberly into the Walking Undead as well. I mean, they were just here going, man, look how weird we are. So you've got to bet that we're going to do these two versus Decay, and that is just going to be some of the strangest things you've ever seen in pro wrestling. We then found out too that Brian Myers is really struggling to get a partner for this homecoming tournament because he wanted to get Beulah McGillicuddy in, but Sam Beale, his protege, dropped the ball, so instead he FaceTimed Francine. Unfortunately for Brian Myers, Francine had been watching the show. She doesn't want to be second choice, so she told him to flub off. This is quite a nice little narrative though, because I guess he is going to get somebody cool from the past, or someone that's going to make you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And we'll find out more next week. Impact then remembered to bolster up their whole tag team division, and I always enjoy when a wrestling company does that, because it's not just about the titles. So it was Rich Swann and Willie Mack taking on Violet by Design to see who was going to become the #1 contenders, and it's getting it up. Dina and Rhino jumped their opponents basically as soon as the bell rang, but because Willie Mack and Rich Swann are flippy dippy doo-dah wrestlers, they were just flopping and flying around the place, and honestly, these two guys work so well together. If this Forbidden Door is open, I hope eventually they turn up in AEW. The rest of VBD kept trying to get involved, including Eric Young, who just kept grabbing people's feet and tripping them over because he is a massive goof. And the best bit is when Rich Swann was going for a tag and Cody Deaner basically cut him off in midair. That is one you want to look up. Willie was still able to get the hot tag, but Eric Young was doing his thing once again. But look, the Good Brothers are champions, so you want to have a baby face team to take them on, so it always made all the sense in the world that Rich Swann and Willie Mack were going to win. So they did that cool stunner into a 450 splash finish, they got the victory, and while I should have been celebrating, I wasn't, because as you know, if Violent by Design lose, and Cody Deaner is somehow involved, and he didn't even take the pin here, Rhino did, I think Eric Young is going to get sore and just chop off his arm. So now I have to worry about that for the next few days. Like I say, this was a good match up. We then just had pure madness in Swingers Palace. And you know what I think about these. I suppose they do achieve story beats, but man, is it an assault on the senses. The short version is that we were just making teams for Homecoming, and it is going to be Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green, it is going to be Petey Williams and Jordan Grace, and it's going to be Hernandez and Alicia Edwards. That's all you need to know. W. Morrissey also walked in afterwards though, and he found Alicia Edwards, and he just went, I'm going to be taking on your husband again soon, and I'm going to try and kill him. I was like, man, W. Morrissey, you a crazy hot potato. This is when we got our promo with Eddie Edwards too, who told us that he will be in that 6-man tag team match next week because Tommy Dreamer had asked him nicely and promised that Sami Callihan wouldn't go nuts. And he said to W. Morrissey, ha ha, the joke's on you, for you will not kill me, for I will kill you. So I suppose one of them's going to die. We'll find out. We then had our rematch from Slammiversary after Chris Sabin had shocked the world by defeating Moose. And given how this match ended, I presume we're going to get a third. And these two guys just have such good chemistry. This is all right by me. Sabre went after the leg again because of course Moose is massive, but because Moose is massive, he used his massiveness to massively move Chris Sabin out the way, including taking him and just chucking him into the steel steps, because Moose doesn't care. He then fought back into the ring and up onto the top ropes, and honestly, Chris Sabin hit this beautiful, wonderful tornado DDT after he had pushed Moose from up there. It just looks so good, as does most of Chris Sabin's offense. It's a shame this couldn't have more time, because essentially following that, Sabin went for the cradle shock, Moose blocked it, and he hit the lights out spear to get the 1-2-3. But again, they've shown in a short amount of time they're really good, in a longer period of time they're really good, so if we get an amalgamation of this, when we do get to round 3, which we have to now because we need the rubber match, I will be a happy chap. Who knew that Chris Sabin and Moose would be able to do this time and time again? We are definitely headed in that direction too, because afterwards they continued to fight until officials and referees came out to split them up, as the crowd went, no, don't do it, we want to see them beat each other up. This was a really terrific main event, and look, we knew Chris Sabin was good anyway, but Moose has taken 2021 and made it his own. Big things are a-coming. Which brought us to the end of Impact Wrestling, and it's the same thing I say every week. It does what it needs to do. It's never hard to watch. It's always fun. It's always entertaining. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Overall, it's getting it up. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Impact Wrestling. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head on over to WhatCulture.com where you can read yourself some articles. Come say hello on social media. And we have all the ups and downs for all the shows. Go catch up. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always, and I will see you at the weekend because wrestling never ends. Love ya.